What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, legendary former gold medalist, former two-time world champion, turned trainer, MEDALIST, he responds to that of what's going on, the back and forth between him and his former fighter, former Olympic bronze medalist, former WBC reigning heavyweight American world champion superstar boxer Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder. With that said, obviously Deontay Wilder, he made some allegations to tampered water dealing with MEDALIST. MEDALIST had never did an interview. He never talked about it. He never said he did it or he didn't do it when he did have any types of dealing in the public. Then MEDALIST did a interview, a long anticipated, highly anticipated interview, and he did it with UK media that featured Is the Fight Right? That has Spencer Fearon, high profile UK boxer knowledge pundit and former boxer himself. And it featured a Tunde, who is a highly regarded trainer and trainer of superstar boxer Anthony Yarde, who is also a UK fighter. With that said, MEDALIST was featured on his podcast, Is the Fight Right? That's the name of the podcast. And this was highly anticipated. Many people was anticipating hearing the side from MEDALIST. MEDALIST, he had a few interesting things to say on this podcast, a few in which I'm going to highlight. And when he stated that he could beat Deontay Wilder's opponents, he stated that Deontay Wilder could never beat Tyson Fury, regardless if Tyson Fury had tampered with gloves or not. He stated that, that Deontay Wilder hasn't faced anybody in his career, and Deontay Wilder doesn't listen, doesn't follow instructions, is not hard at work when it comes to running, hitting the heavy bag, so on and such, the things that's necessary, the basics, back to the basics in the sport of boxing to be successful. He stated that Deontay Wilder relied on his power. Deontay Wilder responded to this interview. Another thing, MEDALIST, he stated that Deontay Wilder is done, his career is over, right? And Deontay Wilder, he responded, he had a few choice words. He said that MEDALIST is coming off as if he's been jealous of him in his career. MEDALIST stated that he didn't, he don't care about Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder said, how could a man say he don't care about me when, this man was around my children, around my family? Also, MEDALIST, in his interview, he stated that he never had a relationship with Deontay Wilder. He stated that he never even had his phone number. And so he says that he had to go through Jay Diaz, who called MEDALIST to say, I have this blue chip prospect that I think that you should come train. And Mark said that's how he was introduced to Deontay Wilder. But the deal was that he was going to be the trainer and Jay Diaz was going to be assisting him. Mark is stating that, well, when he got there, things changed, right? So he didn't even have any say-so. It was difficult to deal with Deontay Wilder. And, he had to go through Jay Diaz, the middleman, to communicate with Deontay Wilder ultimately. Deontay Wilder stated that it's disappointing to hear my trainer say such things about me. He says, I guess loyalty doesn't mean anything. That's what Deontay Wilder responded to as well. So he's done an interview. MEDALIST has done an interview. And both have issued statements in the public. Deontay Wilder did it via Twitter. MEDALIST did it via Instagram. With that said, MEDALIST, he's saying that he never meant that Deontay Wilder's career was over. He doesn't know what his career holds moving forward. He was saying that he and Deontay Wilder was done. Mark Breland did take the opportunity, though, to rip into, Spencer Fearon, Tunde, and the Fight is Right podcast, okay? He stated that, they couldn't wait a day to start talking about him, right? So Mark Breland goes in when it comes to that. He stated that, he instructed them that there were some things he did not want to discuss. Mainly, it was the topic of Deontay Wilder when going on this interview, on this podcast. And Tunde has let it be known that Spencer Fearon was aware, Mark Breland had made it aware to him that he didn't want to talk about Deontay Wilder as a topic, but Tunde was never informed. So Spencer Fearon, he was aware, so he wasn't going to ask the questions, but he never informed his co-host because he knew his co-host was going to open that can and ask those questions. So he never informed him, these are questions that we can't answer. These are off limits. So he purposely didn't do that so Tunde could ask the questions that the world wants to be asked. So Mark Breland felt set up. So Mark Breland says, on the podcast I was a guest on, he says they couldn't even wait till the next show to talk about me. I went on the show with them following my request of no Deontay Wilder talk. But when you've been holding on to something for so long and you get pissed off about it, obviously everyone can push your buttons. All kinds of may come out. But that's the environment I would have chose not to speak on. So he's going to, so he says, here goes my take, okay? So he was giving his standpoint. He says, obviously, when it comes to Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua's opponents at 57 years old, obviously, if anybody thinks that I'm feeling like at 57 years old I could beat those guys, that don't even warrant a response. He says, at my age, the only fight I have is for my life, right? And so then he goes on to say that I was making an example that if I was their size and I was younger in my prime, I could beat those guys that they fought, right? He says the facts are my time in training, in coaching the position with the Bronze Bomber changed drastically in 12 years since I started with him. When he turned pro, Jay Diaz called me and humbly stated that he needed a trainer for a great prospect that he had at his gym. Boxing goes like this. You walk into a gym, I train you. He says, I found you, sometimes I manage you. So Jay Diaz seen as Jay Diaz was seen as the head trainer. So he's saying that Jay Diaz found him, so he was viewed as the head trainer. Okay. He says, in the media, but I was the only one on the team with a boxing background, with a boxing resume, and I was the only trainer. This was okay with me because of my humility. So he's saying that he was simply the only trainer in the camp. Okay. He said, I didn't have to be the one in the front of the camera. I've lived life that way anyway. After Deontay became a name in boxing, new members joined the team, and it got to the point where I don't even have my fighter's phone number. I haven't spoke to Deontay alone in years. The things that I told Deontay to do had to be ran past Jay Diaz first. Deontay had become untrainable because he was at the point where he knows more about boxing than all of us. So teaching a correct jab was not priority to learn once he continued on his knockout streak. So then he goes on to explain, his relationship with Deontay Wilder, so on and such, right? Deontay Wilder, obviously, like I stated, he stated, that Jay Diaz, that it was, a lack of loyalty on the part of, Mark Breland. He says it's hurtful, to see his trainer talking about him this way. He stated that Mark Breland was just jealous of him, and prior to a few fights, he got word back that Mark Breland was unhappy with things that was going on, in the camp, so on and such. So with that said, it's safe to say this is a strained relationship. And Mark Breland is not happy with how, Spencer Fearon and Tunde on their podcast, The Fight Is Right, how they, cornered him, right? He's not happy with that. He asked for certain instructions, and while they were on air, they threw out a question to him that caught him off guard, and he said that, because of his built up frustration, he just spilled it out, right? And so he also states that, if anybody believes that, I tampered with the water, that's absolutely ridiculous. That's what he stated. Okay. He says, he don't feel like that even garners a response, but he says anybody who knows the sport of boxing, you're tested before and after a fight. So that's the end of that ludicrous allegations that I tampered with his water. He says, and then there's the glove. To that I say, that's the one time I'm glad Jay treated me like I didn't matter. So he does all the head training aspects, and he witnessed the hand wrapping. So he's saying that, as far as the gloves situation goes, that's on Jay Diaz, because Jay Diaz was the one who witnessed Tyson Fury get his hands wrapped. So if there was any tampering with the gloves, that's not on him, because his job was never to witness Tyson Fury get his hand wraps. That's on Jay Diaz. So if there's any issues with the gloves on Tyson Fury's side, that's on Jay Diaz. So he's saying he's glad at that point that he doesn't have to, that he wasn't, the person accountable for that. And as far as the water, he says that was ludicrous. So, and to this I say, a lot of people are going to, immediately not give Deontay Wilder the benefit of the doubt, as these things do take place within the sport of the boxing. Okay. We've seen this on numerous occasions. If you look at, there's a movie called Assault in the Ring, and it's involving Panama Lewis and Luis Resto, and you could go with Billy Collins. You go check that out. It's called Assault in the Ring. There's gloves. The pattern was removed out of the gloves, and it's a tragic situation. You look at that, and then you look at Deontay Wilder's allegations, and you look at the history of the sport of boxing. There's a history here with things taking place, tampering and things taking place with boxers, trainers, managers, so on and such. Okay, so Deontay Wilder doesn't get the benefit of the doubt because of how he's perceived outside of the ring, not how he's perceived in the ring. Okay, and with that, if he says that he didn't feel right, and he's saying that, the only person he witnessed in control of his water was MEDALIST, that's where he's coming from, right? And so he's also stating that Tyson Fury gloves had little to no padding in them. He believed there was object in there. So, Deontay Wilder's the one that steps in the squared circle. Deontay Wilder's the one, who was receiving the water, and he knows who he received the water from. Now, MEDALIST is saying that that's ridiculous. It wouldn't happen on his part, and he has no part in the hand wraps with Tyson Fury because he wasn't in the room. He's not accountable for that. I believe that Deontay Wilder should be taken serious in this entire equation. That's not me saying that MEDALIST did or didn't do anything, because I don't know. Only MEDALIST, only Deontay Wilder knows. Okay. With that said, when it comes to the glove situation with Tyson Fury, you can clearly see there's an issue with Tyson Fury gloves in the first fight and in the second fight. Okay. And you have to, and this is another thing that's not being taken into account. I know that everybody wants to say, well, Deontay Wilder's making MEDALIST the fall guy and nobody else on his team. Well, if he doesn't feel comfortable and he feels, there's an issue with somebody in his camp, he has every right to feel that way, regardless of how you or me or anybody else perceives MEDALIST. Deontay Wilder, what's important is how he perceives the situation, and that needs to be given the benefit of the doubt, in my opinion, because he is the one that steps through the ropes and put his life on the line for our entertainment. Yes, he gets paid handsomely for it, but he's still putting everything on the line for our entertainment, and that needs to be taken into serious account. Okay, because we see the situations occur with Antonio Margarito and Miguel Cotto, and everybody said that Miguel Cotto was just being a diva, but then the very next fight, Margarito gets found out by Shane Mosley and brother Nassim Richardson. Well, he went into another big fight and was going to attempt the same thing that Cotto was accusing him of, and then he gets found out. But everybody treated Miguel Cotto as he was just being a diva and a sore loser. These things have to be taken into serious account. We saw Floyd Mayweather, Marcos Maidana situation with the gloves in the back. If Floyd Mayweather father and Leonard Ellerbe didn't catch the gloves, Marcos Maidana would have fought Floyd Mayweather with gloves that had no padding in them. Okay? So these things have to be taken. If Deontay Wilder feels this way, until proven otherwise, he needs to be given the benefit of the doubt, in my opinion. So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. I truly believe that Mark Breland should have never did the interview. He should have stayed quiet on this topic, because everything he says, right, is going to be taken literal, because we know that Deontay Wilder didn't look like himself. He didn't look like himself. You have everybody saying he didn't look like himself from the opening bell. He's saying his legs was gone. But then when he says there was an issue with his water, then everybody says, well, he's just being a sore loser and he's being ridiculous. Well, if you're claiming that you witness his fights, and then he's telling you that there was something wrong prior to him even stepping in the ring, why isn't he giving the benefit of the doubt? And, you know, when Mark Breland, he makes the situation look even worse when he says, I never cared about him, I don't care about him, right? Because you have to clarify where you're coming from. Now he's clarifying where he's coming from, saying, I never said his career was over. I was saying that me and him, our relationship is over. See, so I believe that, you know, if there's legal action being taken on either side, or there's things that you can't talk about, he should have never talked about him at all, because we need the story in full totality. So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.